All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. My name is Ruocchio. I'm the author of the Sun Eater science fantasy series from Daw Books, junior editor at Bain Books with more than 5 years of experience in the publishing industry, and a lifelong Star Wars fan. So this evening, in the spirit of that, we're going to be talking about the latest episode of The Mandalorian. I want to have a conversation with those of you who are here. See what you thought about the episode, go a bit back and forth, and do some Q&A stuff in general. This episode was awesome. Episode 5, season 2, 5. Yeah. The Jedi. A lot to talk about, especially if Dennis is here. I'm sure Dennis is excited that Ahsoka's finally here. Of course, like with the other streams, we're gonna get into the meat of it, so there'll be spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, yeah, see, Dennis is already giggling with glee before the first tree fell. Yeah, I figured you would be. That cold open, I was like, oh man, Dennis is gonna be having a good time. I thought it was a great episode. I really loved. Before we talk about any of the Star Wars lore stuff, I loved how Kurosawa it was. I have had this fight with Larry Correia, as another fantasy science fiction writer for I guess about a year now, because I was kind of underwhelmed with the first season, and Larry thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And I was, talking about the pacing, talking about how I wish the narrative had been a little bit more dense than it was. And Larry's like, it's like samurai movies, right? It's okay that it's a little picaresque and wandering around. And I was like, I know, Larry. I know it's like samurai movies. I own every Zatoichi film there is, and I own every Kurosawa movie. I don't think it worked, but this was so Kurosawa, right? And they were very deliberately Japanese with the way that the set looked. I really liked the planet in this one. It really felt sort of Edo period Japan with the sort of Torii-looking gates and the gong and all that stuff. It was very very, very cool. It was very different than the Snow Planet, Space Canada, desert sort of stuff that we got with Star Wars, like the dead forest, those weird sort of bug creatures wandering around on top of all the sort of samurai stuff. I thought the setting was great. I think Dave Filoni did a really good job with the camera work in this one. It really stood out because it felt very old school samurai film in terms of the blocking and stuff. So let's see. Sean says, all I want to know is, what did you think about the Thrawn reveal, and what are your thoughts on the OG Thrawn trilogy? I was really excited, obviously, about the Thrawn reveal. Thrawn, to answer your second question, I guess more substantially first, I'm not the world's biggest fan of the original Thrawn trilogy. Please don't yell at me, Sean. I think it's great. I think it's got a lot of weird stuff in it. I don't like the Luke clone. And it's been a long time since I've read it, so bear with me. Heir to the Empire was, I think, the first book I ever bought. So by no means am I ridiculing it, but it was always a little bit strange to me. A lot of the post Return of the Jedi expanded universe stuff didn't feel right to me growing up. I didn't like the Vong either. I know a lot of people don't like the use of Vong, so I'm not alone in that. But there was. My general issue with a lot of the sort of pre-prequel EU stuff is because there was never this sense that Star Wars is coming back. They weren't sure if George was going to do more. They weren't sure if we were going to be where we are at now, right? With 10 more movies and a bunch of other stuff. They just kind of just started swinging for the fences, and there's so much stuff, right? The Vong are the clearest example of this, because the entire reason the Emperor made the Empire is sort of retconned in the Vong books as a defense against this coming invasion. So the whole plot of the original trilogy seems sublimated to this book series, and that sort of treatment of the films within the broader universe always made me a little uncomfortable. And the Thrawn trilogy did that to an extent too. It also proved, on the other hand, there was an appetite for Star Wars beyond just the films, right? There was still an active audience in the 90s that wanted more, right? It was sort of proof of concept for everything that Star Wars became after that. And so I have no real beef with it, but it isn't. It introduces a lot of elements that I'm a little dicey about. Thrawn himself, however, is the best part of it by far. I think I mentioned on one of the earlier streams, I did a panel with Tim Zahn at Raleigh Galaxy Con last summer, or was it the summer before last? It was last summer. It's 2019. Sorry, 2020 has been about 3 centuries long, as many of you know. And so it's getting a little blurry. And Tim and I talked about empires in science fiction and how one of the things he wanted to do with Thrawn was, put someone in charge of the empire who wasn't a pseudo-satanic maniac. He wanted to sort of steelman the case for the Galactic Empire. And that was who Thrawn was, right? He's not a vicious maniac. He is cold and calculating and ruthless, yes, but those are all in service of trying to rule well. And so I have always liked the character. I've liked that approach. It's something I've taken in my own work. One of the sort of things that I did foundationally when I was starting with the Sun Eater books was that I wanted to not make the Empire the good guys precisely, but make the case that the Empire was a necessary evil. Make the case that the galaxy needed this institution, right? And that was what Tim was doing. So it was really cool to hear him say the same thing and to have reached the same place, organically. So I'm really excited. I'm a little dubious though. I don't know if we're going to get Thrawn in this season or in The Mandalorian at all. I know they're talking about doing the Ahsoka spinoff, which I'm entirely here for, because not only did the prosthetics look great, those white lightsabers were awesome. They looked really, really cool. And so I'm looking forward to that. I'm a little worried. And Sean, you and I were talking about this on Facebook a little bit earlier today. I'm worried that they're using The Mandalorian now that it's pretty successful, everyone kind of likes it, to backdoor pilot a bunch of other Disney Plus projects. Because like I think I said on an earlier stream too, I think their plan is they want to reach a point where they've got a new Star Wars or a new Marvel episode every week of the year, which is going to be great. It's an embarrassment of riches, assuming they keep the quality up. But I'm worried that The Mandalorian itself will be treated as sort of a petri dish for them to introduce new ideas. We kind of got that vibe last week that Cara Dune's going to go do her own thing. And I don't want them to MCU this and bring it back together, because one of my issues with the MCU is that a lot of the standalone films kind of feel like giant TV episodes that you need to keep up on so that you understand the full emotional weight of your Infinity Wars and your Endgames when you get there. And that's a very different medium than cinema, right? If you're going to watch old school films, that's a complete story, right? Or part 1 of 2 or 3. It's not this weird sort of flattened, broad timeline that loops around. You have to keep track of 20 films to really appreciate all the callbacks and the references. Now, that's fun. But I would really like it if each individual cell in that kind of stood on its own a little bit better. And I'm worried that Din Djarin's story here with Greg, the alien, I'm calling him Greg, Grogu. I think Grogu is a kind of cancer. But Greg the alien is going to get sublimated to all these other things they're launching. So we've got Thrawn, and we've got Boba Fett, who we know is getting a series, and then we've also got Ahsoka running around. I'm worried that this is becoming sort of a breeding ground for spin-off projects. That being said, all of those spin-off projects are very exciting, and worried that might be more exciting to me. Because of course, Thrawn, Boba Fett, Ahsoka all have more of a name impact than Din does himself, and I don't want him to get lost in the mix here. So these are just things that I do worry about. Let's see. I'll catch up on a couple of these things. I thought this episode was the best series so far. Totally agree. Star Wars does not really become Star Wars for me until I see a lightsaber. Because I know all the other kids growing up were Han Solo kids. They wanted to see the bounty hunter side of the galaxy, do the seedy underbelly stuff, and go in all guns blazing. I'm talking to you, Marek, if you happen to be here. But I was always the Jedi kid. The Force and the lightsaber fighting and the psychic powers are what separates Star Wars from a lot of similar things, in science fiction, and that sort of actual genre blending you don't get with Star Trek. Star Trek, was never my thing growing up. It was a lot of people sitting around tables talking. I missed the laser sword. I needed that sort of, John Carter high adventure vibe, and Star Wars has that. And so when we finally got damn lightsabers in this, I really felt like I'd come home in a way that a lot of the other episodes hadn't. I will say, I think it suffered a little bit from the lack of the John Williams score. There were a couple of minutes where Ludwig Göransson had it bleed through a little bit, and I missed it. I really missed the old music. I'm not really sold. I like the main Mandalorian theme, and I get they're going for a different vibe, because how are you going to really compete with John Williams? But I missed it in this episode. But I completely agree. I think this is probably the best one, maybe of both seasons. It was great. Dennis says, if Thrawn's alive, so is Ezra. Totally. I wonder, there was an actor who was making noise about being Ezra on Twitter. I don't know if maybe he was trolling everybody or not, but I guess we'll see. I'm pretty excited. I don't know if that's another thing they're going to kick into animation or not. Again, another one of my fears here is they're going to bloat everything. There are going to be 8 shows that people have to watch in tandem if they want to keep up with everything. Because I was seeing some people online who had no clue who Ahsoka was, right? Because they haven't seen Clone Wars, right? People, again, I'm going to keep picking on my poor dad. People like my dad. My dad has not seen any of the cartoons. He's not going to watch, 7 seasons of a cartoon, much less 2 separate cartoons. It's not happening. And having my brother and I be like, she's Anakin's Padawan from in between movies. It's not going to mean anything, right? So there were a lot of people who I think may have felt alienated by this episode because it was so Filoni, right? And it kind of assumed in some cases that people knew who she was, and I'd be interested to talk to someone who has no clue, right? Like a film purist, very casual Star Wars fan, see what they think, because I'm worried it could have been alienating. But same thing too with the Thrawn reveal, like River's saying, River fell out of her chair there when Thrawn got mentioned, right? But that's not going to mean anything to someone like my dad who has no clue. And so I'll be interested to see if they can start to make these things matter more to those fans, or if people are going to fall out because they just don't get it. Let's see. Missed a couple more. Meth. The visuals were by far their best. Scene with Ahsoka and the one by the water was beautifully shot. It was, and it was another one that was so Coruscant with those wide angle shots while they were fighting. It was what I wanted the Luke Kylo fight in Episode 8 to be, right? Because there are those great wide angle shots. Because say what you will about Rian Johnson, he can compose a frame, or whoever his cinematographer could compose a frame. There's some really great shots in The Last Jedi. The color grading is really interesting. It's a very good looking movie. And that final showdown between Luke and Kylo, I was so ready for, and it was this terrible tease, right? There was not really any fighting. And they were so inconsistent about what the rules were on force projections anyway. Ben and Rey could touch. There's no reason, and Ben and Rey could fight in Episode 9. There's no reason that Luke and Ben couldn't have fought in that scene too, and then done the projection reveal. But they had those great wide shots where it was very old school samurai movie and they were facing off. And this one did that. And of course, it was in the very Japanese looking water garden, right? She was feeding space koi, right? It was great. And I think that the actress who played the magistrate was I can't remember the name, but she was, I think, the granddaughter of another martial artist who was a contemporary of Bruce Lee's. Very convincing in that fight scene, although someone, I think it was Dennis, noted in the comments I just saw, as a fencer, maybe you can relate. I kept thinking that a flick of the wrist to slice off that lady's fingers would have been easy. Yeah, swords have guards for a reason. As I was initially frustrated because of exactly that, right? She's holding the spear. There's no reason that you can't just slide down and just slice her hands right off, right? And that fight would have been over in 3 seconds. Although I did find there's a person who's already edited all of the cutaways to The Mandalorian and the guard captain talking outside. So it's just the saber fight straight through. And I watched that a few times. And there are some people who were pointing out too that, because I missed a lot of this stuff first time through. The way Ahsoka reversed grip, right? And I hate reverse grip, but I know it's Ahsoka's thing. She was kind of Inigo Montoya-ing with toying, Montoya anyway, toying with the magistrate, right? Until like, oh, I lost my, my main sword. I may as well get this over with. And she switches grips and just trounces her in a couple seconds. That's good, kinetic storytelling. I really like that sequence all the way through. Someone mentioned the sound design was great. I think it was Bug Zero said that. Sound design was really great on that. The lighting was great. The blocking, it was a really, really good sequence. I don't know where that one's going to rank for me in the mastered list of all lightsaber fights in Star Wars. Although the Episode 5 one is still at the top. Just throwing that one out there. But it was great. I liked all the sort of almost horror movie ways that the sequences were shot with Ahsoka in the fog, and then moving through the city with the HK droids. Another KOTOR reference. So that was all really, really fun. I am interested to see where they're gonna go with Greg. Because they're sort of hinting that he's got the same sort of dark side propensities as Anakin, and we're going to go and presumably find a different Jedi, which I hope is Luke. I hope they're recasting Luke, and we get to sort of redeem Luke's character a little bit here in the new stuff, because it's got to be someone who means something to the audience, right? And they're not just going to be like, oh, look, it's Cal Kestis from Fallen Order, for the same reason that, like, I worry that, let's say, Orthodox fans like my dad who haven't seen the Clone Wars were maybe totally confused by Ahsoka's presence. It's got to be someone that film goers know, right? Maybe Mace Windu's alive, but I really hope it's Luke. Although that would suggest that Baby Yoda Greg ends up in Luke's academy and gets Columbined by Ben, which is something that I've been thinking about since the first season, which is a little unfortunate. And that's the problem with doing things, skip around timelines too, right? We all know like where some of this is going, and if this were maybe the first story we'd gotten after Return of the Jedi, the future would be open. As it is, we know it's all converging towards Rise of Skywalker, and that sort of puts some fence conditions around all of this. Let's see. Bug Zero, Iron Man 2 was the worst of it. We've heard of multiple directors leaving when single movie doesn't plug in. Yeah. There have been a lot of like weird little messes behind the scenes with the MCU. And I mean, the product is still very coherent. I actually don't hate Iron Man 2. I think Tony is like the most authentically comic book Tony in that movie. I think I might have said at one point before, I think Jon Favreau is the only director who's been in the MCU who kind of gets Tony Stark as a character. I don't like the Civil War arc's decisions with Tony generally, like even in the comic books. Sorry, Steve. If you Steve McNiven reads my books, and so if he catches this, I apologize. I always thought it was weird that Tony was like the statist guy in that, because he's so libertarian, and it just played really weirdly for me on screen. So that's the one thing I like about Iron Man 2. Yeah, a bunch of the single movies don't really, I don't know, but tonally, the tones are all over the place. There's a bunch of weird stuff. Again, not saying it's bad. But I wish there had been a bit more of an artistic through line. I think it meshes a lot better than, say, the sequel trilogy does. But I do wish that had been more coherent. On Star Wars not being Star Wars without lightsabers, I thought explaining the Force again felt that much more magical, knowing they left it pretty forceless until now. Yeah, I did too. I know a lot of people are like, wait, how does, Din not know about the Jedi, right? How have some people never seen the Force or like literally people will say, may the Force be with you, and then not recognize the Force when they see it. If there were a miracle performed, in the public square today, people might not recognize that for it is, but they've read, they've read the Bible, right? They've read, the Quran or the Vedas or whatever you want, right? If Vishnu showed up too, like people wouldn't really guess that's what was going on. And so I actually like that angle they've been playing with the Star Wars, where people don't recognize the Force when they see it. They don't realize what Jedi is they've heard the word. I think that's actually pretty reasonable. I liked that they brought a bunch of the lack. It makes it feel like a more coherent, gelled religion, philosophy, all of these things. I think I lost you guys for a second there. It said connection is a little patchy. Everything okay now? In case I got cut off, I'll just repeat real briefly. I like they're repeating some of the exact phrases that like Ben Kenobi used in episode 4 because it makes this feel a little bit more like doctrine, right? Okay, cool. Still here. Good. Sorry about that. I've been part of moving my office upstairs and finishing the 3rd floor has involved moving all of the internet equipment. So there's maybe some hardware weirdness going on. Let's see. Where was I? This is viewers, we understand the Force. Yes. Math. Star Wars isn't Star Wars unless lightsabers are involved. My man. Yes. Let's see. Bug Zero, it was so amazing to keep using the Lone Wolf and Cub motifs dialed up in this episode. Yeah, they've been really hammering that hard, and it's really working. It really, really is. Those white lightsabers are beautiful. I am hoping for Grogu the Gray. As in Gray Jedi? Yeah, that's a possibility. I don't think we're going to get any Baby Yoda dialogue, like, maybe ever. I think at this point it would kind of ruin the sort of gimmick of the character. So I don't know that we're going to get an articulated philosophy out of Greg the Green at any point. But we'll see. He's already done more in terms of developing a backstory and personality, just telepathically communicating with Ahsoka than we've gotten out of the rest of the show, which is a little bit frustrating. To go back to the pacing issue, I really wish we would have gotten some of this like in the season 1 finale. That it's taken a season and a half to sort of get any answers about like really the main character in a sense. Certainly the MacGuffin is a little bit frustrating to me. Let's see. There could be more Star Wars, Dennis says. In 300 years, he'll be able to speak. That's true, assuming he, again, doesn't run into Ben Solo on a bad day. Let's see. Bug Zero, I guess they weren't done crushing us with pre-existing expectations after Rogue One in response to the whole poor Greg and Ben Solo situation. Yeah, I just, it's really tricky, even when you've got something like Story Group, to centrally plan something and then jump around in the timeline. This is why people don't like prequels so much. It's really tricky to write something that presupposes not only that everybody knows the original story, but that relies on the original story for its own dramatic impact. It works if you're going to like do reveals that totally change the context of the original, but do that in a way that doesn't ruin people's feelings about the original. You can reveal new information, but if you make something worse, which is a real risk with the prequel, then you lose a lot of your audience, and then vice versa. If you make it so much better than the original that it completely changes everything, then you didn't do very good the first time. So there's a whole bunch of like weird algebra that you've got to do to balance both ends of this. And right now, because the sequel stuff, in my view, is so disappointing. Again, I know there are people who like it, that basically anything leading up to it, right, feels a little bit denatured to me, because we're still going to end with Rey Palpatine stealing the Skywalker name and walking off into the binary sunset, and that depresses me. And it's hard to enjoy the thing just on its own merits, unless it can recontextualize that stuff at the end, right? We're talking about like the is that Snoke in the tank last episode thing, right? And if they can go ahead and scaffold that in a way that makes the sequels better, great. I would like to feel better about them. If, on the other hand, everything that we're seeing is in service of just scaffolding those things and doesn't add anything else, then maybe it was also, it might not have been worth it. I would like for this to spin off things, in new directions. Take Din. I'm not saying literally spin off, right? But broaden the universe in a way that leaves at the end of the timeline characters and situations that are still interesting to me, because Rey alone is not that interesting to me, especially considering like all the ambiguity about where she's going to take the Jedi. There's not like a very strong, clear answer about what balance the Force means, or where the Jedi Order is going after this, or what the nature of light versus dark is anymore. I feel like the yellow lightsaber is supposed to tell us something about actual balance, but we don't really have a clear, like, textual answer to that. And so I worry about anything post 9, and I worry about anything pre 9 because it's sort of in service of 9, right, and of the sequels generally, because time moves in one direction. Unless you pull a, World Between Worlds. Is that what it's called, Dennis? Dennis is the real lore master here. I'm just an enthusiast. Unless they pull the sort of time travel Elite Force World Between Worlds thing, which I don't know how well that would play in like live action for more casual fans. Like, oh, we just threw out all the old movies. Some things like, Endgame time travel works because comic books are kind of a kitchen sink project. I worry that time travel for Star Wars might throw some people off, but I could be totally off base. I don't know. But to get way back down to earth, because I've spiraled out somewhere else talking about all this timeline stuff, which I hope wasn't too unclear. I thought this episode was great. I really, really did. I cannot get over, and I've harped on it a little bit, that the samurai film tone was really clear in this one. I've always felt that instead of the way Star Wars maybe should be taken forward is not by reinventing the wheel like they did with 7, but would be to go back to the Kurosawa sort of source material, because episode 4 is just Hidden Fortress, right? And look at different samurai films and convert those, right, to Star Wars. And that's kind of what they did, right, with the Lone Wolf and Cub thing. Although that's a comic book series, isn't it? But to go back and say, do a Star Wars version of Ran or Seven Samurai or something like that, and reapproach the universe in the same way that George Lucas did, by looking at all these older things, right? Looking at cowboy films, looking at samurai movies, and this sort of did that in a 45-minute chunk that I thought was really, really well executed. Sorry, there's a lot of reallys. Couldn't get my thoughts together. Let's see. Dennis says, I'd rather they go to a new era and start from scratch. I think they are with a couple of projects. God help us. I think the Rian Johnson trilogy, which I think has been canceled but hasn't officially been canceled. This is sort of the vibe that I get, because no one's talked about it in years, was supposed to just go somewhere else, far away in space and time, and just be disconnected. I think that's definitely a good way to do it. I'd be interested in moving like 100 years past episode 9 and just doing a clean break. It's what I wanted them to do with Mass Effect, because I don't know if any of you are familiar, but the ending of the 3rd Mass Effect game was so famously upsetting and disappointing. When they announced they were doing a new one, I was like, great, they can set it 100 years later. We can see that the universe is still cool and interesting after that terrible ending, and then it'll be okay. But then it ended up being a prequel, and it didn't solve that sort of anxiety. What does the universe look like after Mass Effect 3? What does the universe look like after Rise of Skywalker? I just want to know that the world is okay. That there's still interesting stories to be told. To pick something I actually really like, I have the same anxiety about Lord of the Rings, right? I don't know that a Fourth Age story, and Tolkien tried to write a sequel, and he decided it was morally repellent, so he didn't finish it. But he did a story that was set 100 years after the end of Lord of the Rings. And I'm not sure that I want to visit Middle-earth without elves and dwarves, right? Because it's starting to get closer and closer to history. And so I want to know that the world is still I guess fun is the right word, still engaging, still interesting after these endings, right? After Rise of Skywalker, after Mass Effect 3, whatever it may be. Because I don't like the idea of these things ending. Maybe that's just me. In the same way that like I don't like the idea of being dead. But again, this sort of rambling. Let's see. Matt seconded Dennis's start from scratch proposition. I think that's the right call. I don't think moving back in time and doing like this High Republic thing they're doing with the novels is maybe the right move. I don't know. Maybe that works. We'll see. I'll be interested to see how that goes. Let's see. I guess there's a younger Yoda in that, so that could be interesting while also still being really disconnected. But the previous film's emotional reveal has always been weak, i.e., Bloke and James Bond Spectre, Khan, Star Trek Into Darkness. Yeah, man, Spectre, I really wanted that to be good. And it feels so shoehorned in with the Ernst Stavro Blofeld thing. I don't know why he needs to be James's stepbrother too. That was such a weird choice. He could just be Blofeld and it'd still be cool. Having and there was also like some weird studio stuff too, because didn't they not have the rights to the Spectre name? That's why they were doing the whole quantum thing, and then they had to shoehorn it in. It was it just didn't work. And don't even started on Into Darkness. I like Benedict Cumberbatch, but was, relying on the original version, right? He says, and everyone's talked about this. I guess I will start on it briefly. The "My name is Khan" dramatic pause line, that doesn't mean anything to James Kirk. Although why it doesn't mean anything to James Kirk is interesting, because isn't Khan supposed to be a famous warlord? It'd be like finding Hitler in a tank. He's like, "Oh, my name's Hitler," and like, "Oh, why are you not dead? Thought we got you. Actually, we thought you got you." But I digress. Anyway, Dennis, my only other gripe is that Ahsoka has a quest, and so does Mando. It should have joined him for a few more episodes. One is way too few. Yeah, this is that sort of backdoor piloting thing I'm worried about, right? And we joked about Boba Fett turning up in the end of the episode stinger, and he's just gone. Like, is he going to turn back up in these last 3 episodes? They've got so many knives in the air for these last 3 episodes between Boba Fett and Thrawn and Ahsoka and Moff Gideon and Bo-Katan and Dark Troopers. And are we going to see Cara and Greef again? And all these, it's just, there's so much going on. And they've been so, I don't want to say frivolous with their time, but they haven't, do we need 2 episodes of Frog Lady? There's so much substance there that they could work with that, I'm worried about the last 3 episodes. I would like I've said before, more narrative density with the whole thing. And so, yeah, I wish Ahsoka would hang around a little bit more too. But I don't think she's going to. I think that was probably all we see. Maybe she's off to her own show now. And we aren't going to hear about Thrawn anymore either. Yeah, Bug Zero totally crushed that she showed up like a boss queen and we ditch her after 1 episode. I think that's what's going to happen. Let's see. Dennis, not about that fetch quest life. Are you about that fetch quest life, Dennis? Let's find out. Let's see. Dennis Ian. I want more dual lightsaber action. Plus, she's the key to finding Sabine and Ezra. Yeah, I honestly wonder if this Ahsoka bit from this episode wasn't before that epilogue scene in at the end of Rebels. I actually thought for a minute that the spear was going to be the staff we saw Ahsoka with all Gandalf-like at the end of Rebels. I was like, oh, that's where she got it. That's cool. I didn't know that we needed an origin story for her spear, but there we go. But she gave it to Din, which reminds me. I thought that it was going to be Ahsoka fighting Moff Gideon, and maybe Gideon was going to turn out to have been an Inquisitor all along, and I was here for it. But I think now that they've clearly demonstrated that this Beskar spear can stand up to the Darksaber, that we might get some cool Din Djarin, Moff Gideon spear Darksaber fighting in the near future, which would be neat, and not just because Pedro Pascal was Oberyn Martell, but he was. So I'll be interested to see if they do that, because I will laugh. I love little references like that. This is the princess in another castle phenomenon. Bug Zero says, yeah. Like I say, that's my big fear right now with the whole Disney Plus Star Wars project, is that it's just going to become this very like flattened out interreferential thing, and nothing's going to be as linear a story. I'm really worried about that. Meth says, Christopher, I know you're a Dune fan. Have you seen the comic adaptation of House Atreides? Sorry, I know we're talking about Star Wars. I mean, don't have to be sorry. I think we've ended up talking about Sun Eater stuff for the back 30 minutes of all of these things. And we talked about Dune pretty regularly, so don't worry about that. I have seen it. I haven't read it yet. I am not a huge fan of the House trilogy in particular. I like the Butlerian Jihad books. I don't think they're exactly what Frank meant when he was talking about the Butlerian Jihad, but I like them. I think they're fun. The House books, I feel, are a little bit more obviously counterfactual with the main Frank Herbert books. Changing Gaius Helen Mohayim to be Jessica's mother away from Tinidi and Naris. Stuff like that bothers me. So I haven't picked it up. It does have a really cool cover, though. I think it's Jay Lee who did the cover on those, and he is awesome. Really, really cool artwork. But I haven't picked it up yet. Let's see. Bug Zero. Hell, Jedi never want to train anybody. And that wasn't the same reason. He's too old. He's too sad. He likes his parent too much. I guess the moral of the story is, if you want to be a space wizard, don't get along with your dad. So I'm doomed. I don't get to be a space wizard. Of course, no such rules in. Actually, never mind. I can't say that. Hadrian doesn't get along with his dad either. Anyway. Fetch quest. Let me go Google that. I didn't know the term plot coupon until now either, but that's a good one. Wow. Yeah. No, it's been just so much of that. I would really just like them to get embroiled in a situation that actually has cliffhangers and moves week to week, as opposed to the sort of, the Xena monster of the week, planet of the week, sort of vibe. They keep being handed the next baton, and then they carry it to the start of the next episode, which, I mean, is a perfectly fine format, right? If we had 22 episode seasons, I don't think that sort of thing would faze me. I also think I would be complaining about filler a lot more than I already am, because I'm never happy. I was listening to Mike of Mike's book reviews earlier, talk about how people are really, really excited about the episodes on Friday, and then by Monday they're over them, and they think they're stupid. And I think I do that all at once. I'm not saying that it was stupid, but I think that I go right from this is really fun to I'm going to pick this apart and complain. And maybe the fault of these streams, because I have to come in here and say something other than, man, did you guys see the lightsaber fights and all of the Japanism and the samurai sort of camera work on those? I got to find something more creative to say. Let's see. Bug Zero, do you think it's a side effect of no stakes if they're going to be at least 8 episodes? No one important will die in the first half of the season. Yeah, I do think the format is driving a lot of the problems here. It's part of why I've been frustrated by the run times, particularly on season 2. Now that they know that people like it, I don't know why they wouldn't have extended the episode order. I guess this was filmed before the pandemic. I was about to say maybe it was just the COVID thing, but I was really wondering, if they were going to get a budget increase or an additional episode order or longer run times. I do think that since season 1 put basically all of season 1's plot developments in the last 2 episodes, barring a couple incidents in the first 3. Not that they haven't brought some of that stuff back around, but I'm still not convinced the Orlando Bloom lookalike bounty hunter was. I don't know that we needed a whole episode there. I don't, so I wonder if there's not the same loading problem. I don't know. Maybe it's maybe it's a format thing. Just like, I don't know if Jon Favreau has done shorter form stuff or if he's only ever done films, but season one feels like a very loosely plotted movie to me. Like there's probably a 2-hour cut of season one of The Mandalorian that's really, really, really good. I'd be interested to see if someone's done that on YouTube already. I'm sure someone has. But taking some of the air out and cutting this back into either a 2.5, 3-hour movie, or stretching it out and actually blowing up these arcs into things that are more substantive, I think would be interesting. Did that answer the question? I'm worried I missed a piece there. But I do think the format is working against them in some way, and maybe it's just a lack of comfort with the 40-minute sort of chunks. Maybe I'm not sure, but why, for instance, we didn't spend the first 4 episodes sort of digging into like there's a version of the Boba Fett and Bo-Katan thing that gels together more significantly. Where he gets the armor from Cobb Vanth, right? And then he has to go and do this other thing, Frog Lady, and runs into Bo-Katan. And then they like talk about the Boba Fett armor and like where it came from. And then we'd sort of deal with that a little bit more and get more information on all of that, so that it's kind of more baked in, so that when and if Boba Fett turns up, things are a little bit weightier and they mean more to people who don't know all these things. Like my wife did not recognize Tamara Morrison at all, right, when we watched that first episode. She's like, because I watched these first thing in the morning, one, so that YouTube can't ruin it for me, because everybody's putting spoilers in their damn thumbnails, which is why I'm not doing it. I don't know, and I don't even like really respect spoiler culture that much. You guys, I spoiled my books on page 1, but people keep doing that, and then I've been watching them later with her, and I was watching her at the end and was like, oh yeah, she's gonna, because Jenna loves Star Wars, like she's gonna recognize Boba Fett, and she's like, who is that? And I'm like, oh, okay, right. So if Jenna didn't get it, like there were easily thousands of people who had no clue either, and so actually sitting down and talking about this stuff, and working it back in, I think would better serve them. So there's a version, maybe if they'd sat down and rewritten some of this, like if you guys have ever seen those What If Episode 1 were good things, I think Belated Media was the channel, where he doesn't take anything out, but he takes the movie apart, puts it back together in a way that's better. If they'd done a really heavy editorial pass on the scripts, I think, they might have been able to find versions of this that I think satisfy me better without changing the format. But I just like complaining. My brother won't go to movies with me because he'll afterwards be like, "Didn't you like that? That was really fun." And I'll be like, "I don't know, man. There's too much CGI." And then he doesn't, want to have the conversation anymore. Poor guy. Let's see, Dennis. I think everyone is moving to the European 10-episode series format. Even Star Trek Discovery did 15, 14, and 13. Yeah, of course, although the BBC is now, I think the next season of Doctor Who is 8. But that's, I think that might be COVID stuff too. But I think 10 episodes is reasonable. I was really surprised. The Lord of the Rings show Amazon's doing is supposed to be, I think, 22. And I, sort of, is it 1998 again? What's going on? Is Richard Dean Anderson going to walk through a Stargate into Minas Tirith? I don't know. But I think 10 episodes is perfectly reasonable. 8 was surprising to me. And when some of them are 30 minutes long, I see the timestamp in the morning. I'm like, oh man, I thought this was going to be way better than this. That being said, episode 3, I think, was the shortest this season, and it was pretty solid. I will take Pirates of Darkwater homages wherever I can get them. Bug Zero, did you like the slow showdown style fighting in here compared to prequel Cyborg Ninja Rapid Acrobatics? Specifically in the sword fighting? Oh yeah, you talked about sword fighting from Fencing Experience. Yeah, I do, and that's actually one thing I liked about episode 7. I like the especially the Finn part of the sword fight at the end, but the Rey Kylo snow fight feels more substantial. This felt more substantial. You could actually feel those hits, and part of that was down to the sound design. I think it was you who was calling out the sound design earlier, Bug Zero. But I like the prequel fighting. I think Nick Gillard did some really cool stuff with that. This was a lot more staid. I will say that the fighting in the sequels goes immediately to hell after that first one in episode 7. The episode 8 throne room scene, I know everyone thinks it looks cool. It's a complete mess. They're the Praetorian Guard who has the 2 knives. They have to digitally remove one of them at one point. Otherwise, he could just kill Rey. It's a complete disaster. And then the episode 9 fights are so awful. The one on the wreck of the Death Star in the ocean should be really, really cool. And there's no music for one. It's this really low energy, slow, floaty mess. But I think this splits the balance really well between the original trilogy's sort of more staid, more traditional movesets, and the prequels sort of over the top balletic stuff, right? Because Ahsoka's going to do some force dashing. She jumps over that tree and pulls Din up into the air on his own line, which is really cool. But we're also not sort of making a big mess and everything with all these crazy twirling moves that look silly. That bit in Revenge of the Sith where Obi-Wan and Anakin literally just windmill in front of each other for a second before striking. It's silly. As much as I like the Mustafar fight, and I do, I think this was better. There were a couple bits that looked weird to me. Again, I hate the reverse grip thing. I know everyone thinks it looks cool, and I know that's Ahsoka's thing. But the whole rule of cool thing, I'll let it slide. But I do think this was on the whole better. And the one thing I really liked about this particular fight sequence is that it actually had some narrative momentum to it. The reason the Empire Strikes Back one is the best is that it also conveys Luke's psychological journey through that whole fight very well, right? He starts out pretty confident and he just gets battered down until he has to get away, and he gets blown out the window and has to climb back, and he just keeps getting worn down. Darth Vader's this relentless machine who's really toying with him in that. So the whole psychological journey of that sequence is really good. And the Ahsoka fight in this with the magistrate was good. They almost kind of knew each other. They start off with that very samurai respect warrior thing going on. It gives everyone time to sort of get ready and in position. It's very respectful. It's very serious. It's very staid. And so there's a clear conveyance of some sort of relationship between the characters. That all was really, really good. And so it was good piece of visual storytelling and not just a thing. That was all good. Let's see. What we got? I missed a couple here. Prequel, okay, that's the one. It used to be 24 weekly episodes. Yes, sorry. I kept saying 22. I think the Lord of the Rings one fooled me. You have 2 weeks off for the holidays, rerun the entire season over the summer. Dennis is wise. Let's see. Bug Zero, beautiful disaster in a big red room. It is all about the mood. I think that movie looks great. When all the red backdrop catches on fire and at the end, it's a very interesting looking scene. As far as all the color stuff goes too, right, with Snoke and the gold, it's beautiful. And I actually thought Snoke was really terrifying in that whole scene too. Killing him was a bold move and I think a mistake. It just from a choreographic standpoint, that fight bothers the crap out of me. Let's see. Meth says, still no mention of the great Michael Biehn. That wasn't him as the guard captain, was it? I haven't seen him in anything in 100 years. So I only can think of him as Aliens. That wasn't him as the guard captain. He's still out there, right? He's coming in another episode. Unless I am completely blind and didn't recognize the poor guy. Reverse grip is the holding the gun sideways of Star Wars. It's also the holding the gun sideways of The Witcher. Uh, but yes, dead on. Um, let's see. He was the guard captain. Okay, yeah. Oh, gosh, no, I literally like can't think of the last thing I saw him in that wasn't Aliens. So just totally. I remember he was rumored to be a bounty hunter, so I wasn't looking for him at all. But yeah, he was cool. I thought he was actually going to let him get away, and that was going to end more congenially. But it kind of contrasted too with how respectful the Ahsoka magistrate duel was. He was trying to pull a fast one there at the end, and of course the assassin droid was still out there. I kind of wish the droids had been more of a thing because they looked kind of cool, and they didn't end up amounting to very much. But we only had 45 minutes, and there was too much cool stuff jammed in already that to get hung up on, whether or not we also did the cool robot thing is probably me nitpicking. Dennis, wise, well, maybe old. Well, you can be both, Dennis. I am neither. So, even trade. Yeah, okay. I feel stupid about not recognizing Michael Biehn. Oh well, I'm usually better at this sort of thing. Anyway, we are reaching the end here of the hour, and it's really hard to say much more because the episode was just awesome. I'm really excited about the next one. I'm really hoping we do get that sort of avalanche effect here in these last few episodes. So really looking forward to where this goes. Looking forward to doing the next few of these. I will say, as far as book news goes, finished another chapter today. It's been another slow week with the holiday. I am not writing as fast as I would like to. It's not because of the streaming. I promise. I was at it all day today. It just this time it was Thanksgiving. And the last weird couple days at work before we got into Thanksgiving were slow. You know how it is before holidays. But I will have some news for everybody next week regarding book 4. Finally let everyone know about the release date and the title. So if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, there ought to be a link in the description of this video. I can't double check it right now from the stream studio. But I think it's in the description. If not, it's at SolidEmpire.com. Just click on the newsletter tab and sign on up. I'll have you get an email Tuesday as soon as I send it out. So sometime probably around lunchtime. I've got the title reveal, the release date, and the UK cover is going to come out. I'll let you guys know. I'm not going to post about it until I surprise everyone else. But since you've suffered through 50 minutes of rambling about Star Wars, it seemed like a fair thing to let you know. We're gonna get the cover, the release date, and the title itself, of course, coming up in a few days. The U.S. cover is going to be a little bit behind. It's not happening yet. Although I am getting a bonus piece of art from that artist, from Kieran. He is going to do the cover for that anthology I've got coming out in December of next year. So we're going to get 2 new bits of Sun Eater art from Kieran here soon, which I'm really excited about. Math, one instance where the American covers are better than the UK. I like both, of course, but I am a big fan of Kieran's stuff. Particularly, Kieran didn't do book 1. I'm a big fan of the 2 covers Kieran did do, these 2, because they look almost exactly like I imagine them. He's been, of all the artists that I've worked with, he's been the one that sort of gets exactly what I'm picturing the best. And so I'm a big fan of Kieran's stuff so far. Again, not to knock anybody else. But the 2 he did for me are probably they are the most faithful covers, and so they're probably my favorites. So we've got 2 pieces of art coming from him in the next year, one for book 4 and one for the Sword and Planet anthology. I'm very excited. New art is one of the best parts about being an author, in my opinion. So I'm psyched. So stay tuned for that newsletter on Tuesday. We'll get the reveal. Finally, stop calling it book 4, and just let you guys know what it's actually called. So that'll be fun. Anyway, you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you, as always, for hanging out with me, talking about Star Wars. It really is fun to do. And we'll catch you guys next time. Everyone, enjoy the first week of December. Hey, we've made it. We're almost out of 2020. Thank God. All right. We'll see you then. Night, everybody.